I'm here today with Leah Rossi, who's with Wyndham Destinations in Austin, Texas. How you doing today, Leah?
Doing great, pushing through.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I can tell you that I'm very excited to talk to somebody from Austin. I have not had a chance to speak with anybody from Austin since the pandemic started. So, I've talked to a lot of people from a lot of other locations and received a lot of feedback on kind of how the economics are going. Some cities are doing great. Some cities are split so that part of the city's doing great, but the other part of the city hasn't quite recovered yet, just depending on location. What's going on in Austin? What do the economics look like in Austin right now? How are things going there?
We are doing okay overall. Businesses are getting all the clientele they need. We're getting a lot of tourists in our business. We are known for our festivals and our music scene. And last year, of course, it took a big hit. My property, for instance, we were closed for 3 months, closed down completely. And then once, started loosening up a little bit, people did not hesitate to come back. The issue mainly is the associates, the employees coming back, but we definitely have the customers.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that's great. So, Wyndham Destinations, tell me a little bit more about your property because it's not like it's a typical hotel, right?
Nope, it's a vacation ownership property, 189 suites. We range from studio to a 3-bedroom, accommodates families, couples, anyone celebrating reunions will come here. We have several Airbnb now, not just timeshare owners anymore. We've evolved a lot that way, which is really helpful when it comes to anyone traveling for leisure, young couples and wedding parties, bachelorettes, things like that. So we see all kinds of people come through here. Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like your property's leisure based, right? I mean, you don't get corporate travelers. You're not seeing corporate travelers. It's all leisure, right?
Yeah, hardly at all, actually.
Okay, okay. How are other hotels doing in the city? Are they enjoying the same sort of success that you all are as far as an occupancy standpoint goes, or is it kind of hit or miss right now?
I would say it's hit or miss. We're a little bit more, I guess, fortunate to have the ownership portion where people have already, of course, bought into it and don't necessarily have to pay to travel anymore. So I think we're a little bit more fortunate in that way because other hotels are kind of relying on the events that are happening in the city. Occupancy spiking over the weekends, but very, very low during the week. So I would say it's hit or miss. It's up and down right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's I think that's pretty much reflective of a lot of markets. I know a lot of people are waiting for, that consistent occupancy to come in back in across all segments of their market. But it sounds like since you are leisure based, your property's doing pretty well right now, it sounds like.
Yes, we are. We're happy to have them. We just need to maintain the staffing levels.
Absolutely. So let's talk about staffing a bit. So, how is your staffing doing, post pandemic? Are you getting your employees to come back? Are you finding new employees? What does that look like?
We are, a lot of our hourly positions are being filled for the most part. We have had to make a lot of accommodations when it comes to schedule because, of course, people and their families, their financial circumstances, so many changes have happened outside of work that they're not able to perhaps be as available. We've had to open part-time positions, people not being able to work on weekends. Pre-pandemic, that was unheard of. We wouldn't even hire you if you couldn't work on a weekend, in
Right.
our business. So, being a little more sensitive to people's needs is necessary. When you can work with that, then you can make it work. Now, the higher positions, the more management positions, those have been really difficult to find. I think a lot of people with those skill sets have really embraced the at-home work and don't want to necessarily come back to ops in that way. Everyone's competing against each other with salaries, so
Right.
Our recruiting team's just constantly working on Indeed and LinkedIn and trying to seek out folks who are willing to take, the as much as competitive as we can be, those salaries that we put out there.
So I want to touch on something you mentioned here, which is flexibility in schedules. I know a lot of industries talk about flexibility being the key to, attracting and retaining talent. How are you working with flexible schedules in the hospitality industry? Because, like you said, that's kind of an unheard of thing.
Yeah, it's like playing Tetris. You got to find out. We do our best we can with the numbers that we have on the books. Patterns, the flow of visitors in the guest services business, for instance. And you have to ask the questions to the team. You have to, not make any assumptions. There are some people, for instance, our night auditor, one of them, she really can't see herself coming in the daytime because of her situation with her child. So never be creative. That's kind of what you have to do, and never assume anything. They're thinking about making someone hybrid, where you can double code them and have them help out and cross train in other departments. You look for key players and people with skill sets that aren't necessarily in their job position, and try to develop them in other places, and it's a win-win that way too.
Now, are your team members receptive to being cross-trained or being, asked to do multiple things? I know when the pandemic started, when I was running hotels, one of the first things I got was, I've never really done that. I don't know if I really want to do that. Are your team members kind of open and receptive to being cross-trained?
I would say there's a portion that are, and then some that aren't. So, one thing that I emphasize to my leaders is having one-on-ones. That's the best way to kind of do a pulse check on your team, and making sure that you find out what are their goals, what are their long-term goals, what are their short-term goals, and you'd be surprised at the answers you get. We are in the hospitality business, but you have people that aren't so straightforward or open until you ask. So you do find that people, they might be on track. I have a very successful guy just moving up the chain because he's so open. He went from being a housekeeper, now he's a tech 2 in maintenance, and he's loving maintenance right now. So just feeling them out. And then there's some people that are completely content. Bellman, for instance, it's a great job. They made
Absolutely.
it career bellman, or career housekeeper. It's just their passion. So you have to respect that too. So, but the most important thing is identifying those people and building on that.
Okay. Now, are you able to identify some of that talent and try to move it into some of those hard to fill management roles that that you're looking at right now? Are you having any success in getting people up that ladder?
We've had success. We've had, let me think, 2 positions where people have moved up into leadership roles. That's the goal every time.
Okay.
It really is. When you interview people at an hourly position, the lowest paying position, even, the question you want to ask is, do you want to grow in this company? Do you want to grow in this business? How can we get you there? And we're hoping that the answer is yes every time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, and I absolutely understand that. And I think, you know, building your own internal talent is a great way to ensure that, you're always able to fill positions that they come open. You keep people excited. And I think that piece has always been there for our industry. Now it seems more important than ever because, like you were saying, that middle level, just, that middle level talent just doesn't seem to be coming out of the woodworks anymore. They seem to be shifting to other positions and other jobs. So, you know, with that kind of in mind, I know when pre-pandemic, it was always, you have to be in this job for 6 months to a year or a year to 2 years to be able to move up. Are you guys being flexible with that now, and you're just recognizing talent and moving people as quickly as you can, or are you still sticking to some of those guardrails?
Yeah, we stick to them for the most part for consistency purposes, I would say. I think we've made 1 or 2 exceptions here and there. But we've had to go through HR for approval
Of
and
course.
trickle it up because these are just company policies. But I think to follow those is important for being fair and being consistent um, for the staff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I always love to do is hear a little bit more about our guests, right? So I usually start the show off by asking you to tell me a little bit about yourself. When you and I were talking prior to this, I feel like you've got a great story. I would love to hear, and if you wouldn't mind sharing just a little bit more about your journey, kind of from where you started in Philadelphia to kind of where you are now in Austin, and I think that'd be great.
Sure. Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm just customer people person. I know that's thrown around a lot, but I discovered early on that I just love customer service and I was good at it. I was just placed in positions like that because I could talk to people. Wasn't great in high school. I had too much fun, but I was ready to get serious in college, and I saw a program at the university that was for tourism and hospitality. And from there, I definitely made the right move because it was very hands-on. You had to fulfill community service hours, events, volunteering, just hotels and F&B, all that. But I worked in the old city district in Philadelphia at a museum. And then I started meeting celebrities that would come for events after I volunteered to work the event shifts as well. And I said, this is definitely what I want to do. I want to do tourism. I want to be, in the excitement. But it wasn't until I decided to go overseas, because I also minored in Spanish, and I wanted to go practice Spanish in Puerto Rico. So being that as a U.S. territory, I moved over there, went through a wonderful operations. I had a great mentor down there. And in the end, I was on a catamaran diving, and it was like 3 days before I had to go back for graduation. And I said, I'm coming back because they offered me a couple positions. So I was very, very fortunate to have that. I moved back to Puerto Rico. I stayed there for about 4 years, worked for Hilton there, got an opportunity actually from a friend to go into marketing. And this is like the off-property consultant cruise ship marketing. So it was
Okay.
it was definitely a break from the corporate world, from the management world, but I was there to help him kind of get his concierge program started. Did that for a couple of years. It was great experience, great money, but I missed the hotel business. So I seeked out the opportunities there, and the best resort on the island of St. Thomas, it was the Marriott. So got a lot of great experience there, and then moved over when an opportunity came with Wyndham Destinations. So I worked for what they call a legacy property at a small beach called Lime Tree Beach. And the legacy property basically means like traditional timeshare owners who have been going to
Okay.
St. Thomas since the 70s. So it was a whole different ballgame, and it was actually really cool for me because I've always been so guest obsessed that the financial part, I'd always be battling with that. But this was already an established budget where we're not trying to make money. Revenue management was not a part of my job anymore.
Right.
So
Right.
it takes away the pressure and it lets you focus on what's important, which is guest service. And after the first we got hit by a hurricane in 2017, it was Hurricane Irma. It was a category 5. I had 100 something people on property, guests. We had a caravan. We had to take them out. We got all the rental cars together and drove out after it was safe. We had no power. We were giving them water to flush their toilets. People were just terrified. But we had a ferry that came after. I had a friend I was telling you about who worked for the Marriott. I was in contact with her a little bit after we got our phones working again. And she said, well, Marriott's coming to pick up the Ritz and the Marriott people and so I immediately got on the phone with my RVP and said, look, Marriott's getting a ferry. We got to get one too. He's like, okay. So they ended up like a few days later, finally, all the Wyndham people, we met at our sister property, Margaritaville. Well, first, I can't remember what happened. We were supposed to get one, and another hotel like hijacked our ferry by accident or on purpose, don't know what. So we missed our first ferry, and then everyone had to stay at the Margaritaville property from my property overnight. And so I know I'm going on a tangent, but it's a funny story. When we got over to the Margaritaville, they sustained way less damage, but their TVs weren't working. Our TVs were working, but we had no AC, no running water. But the amount of people that complained that they didn't have a TV, we're like, are you serious? They're like, we want to go back. Okay. So I don't know. But then the next day we got them all on the ferry. They were finally ready to go, and we sent them to Puerto Rico, to Rio Mar, where we have another Margaritaville property there. And then people stayed for a while, and those that stayed in Puerto Rico were hit with Hurricane Maria 10 days later.
Right.
We were also hit by Hurricane Maria. So after all the damage from the trees going down, we didn't have any foliage whatsoever. Well, Maria brought a lot of rain. So after that, we had a ton of flooding.
Right.
And all the work that, we were trying to do to get the property back again, or to save it, or, mold remediation and all that was just down the drain. It was pointless. So, okay. So fast forward, Wyndham also went through a restructuring during that time, where I was laid off, of course, because I didn't have a property. I was doing some training. I was going to Puerto Rico and kind of just being the area trainer and working on procedures and just SOPs and fixing things. But they had to let me go, which I get. And then they found an opportunity for me in sales and marketing. So I was a business ops manager there. Life was not the same. I had a daughter, and my best friend here in Austin said, come live with us, and we were refugees. And then I got in touch with our HR partners from the Florida region. She said, oh, you have to meet this one, and you have to go check out the Austin property. It's amazing. Fell in love with it. Basically did a tour. There were nothing open, but made some connections, and they reached out to me, and now here I am. It's been great. Feels like a second home.
That is absolutely awesome. I think if you are in hospitality long enough, you probably have a very similar story. Maybe not 2 hurricanes, laid off, trying to find a home after that. Hopefully not very many people go through it, but I think everybody has that story of impact that is much more than what people probably believe goes into the job. One of the things that for me, as I listen to your story, I just think, 2017 hurricane, then another hurricane, then, moving, and then having to relocate again. And then you finally get your feet on the ground, pandemic. And it's just to see, to see you be successful in each of those roles, to see you find a place that works for you, to see you doing well, and then to see you on the other side of the pandemic. And just in our conversation prior to this, it's great to hear you talk about how engaged you are with your team, and about how focused you are on your team, and about their growth and their education and their, retaining them, and all of those things that we discussed prior to talking today. One of the things that strikes me is that the resilience that you have shown is kind of something that needs to be held really by everybody at this point in time, right? Everybody's been down. I think at this point in time, we can all safely say at some point in time over the last 2 or 3 years, we've all gone down, and now everybody's coming back up again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with you, what kind of things are you doing, given the resilience that you have and the strength that you've shown, what kind of things are you doing with your team to kind of keep them energized, keep them motivated, allowing them to be as resilient as you've been?
Okay, so lots of things. Of course, while maintaining social distance, it's very difficult to do what I'd like to do. Team building's crucial. Having outings and just ways to connect with each other as humans rather than, in the work environment. Those would be my go-to things normally. But I think what I do is emphasize to everybody that, keep in mind that we're all humans. remember that we're here for the same purpose, and try to foster a family environment here, because a lot of people are feeling really uncertain right now, and have been let down over and over again, whether they feel like it's the government or, their family, or divorce, or their daycares and schooling. There's so much controversy out there from the pandemic. And one thing that I think is important, and like I was saying earlier, how much percent of their lives do they spend here at their job? If they're looking at this place as a place for growth and a future, then we have to make sure that it's going to be a place of warmth, like a second home, comfort, and just support overall. Without crossing any boundaries, just being there for them as a person, as a fellow human, as a mother, if you will. That's kind of, everybody needs that. It does not matter where you are, what department you work for, what kind of personality you have. Everybody needs someone to lean on, and what better than the company that gives you your checks as well. It's a great question, and I think a very simple answer, that we all just need to keep that mindset everywhere.
Yeah, I think, to steal a line from the Ritz-Carlton days, back a long time ago when I worked there, the genuine care and comfort that we show our guests, now yes, we have to continue to show that to our guests, because they're just as nervous and they're just as scared when they're traveling right now in a lot of cases. Um,
Mhm.
but our employees who came to work every single day during the pandemic, who, are now trying to figure out what's next, that genuine care and comfort goes a long way to, I'm sure, ensuring that people stay with you, right? I think when we were talking before, you said, you've had people leave and come back, and I got to imagine it's those kind of things that make them want to come back, instead of, testing the water somewhere else, and seeing if it is that way. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here. Is that about right?
Yeah, it is pretty accurate. People, they always, I always encourage people to look out for themselves and to take any opportunity, even if it's not with us, whatever makes sense. And right now, you have competitors and other places being very creative in the way that they recruit and what they put out there. But then when people get there, they see that it was just a tactic, or
Right.
potentially could be just a way to get people in the door. But retention is key. And, people want to just feel valued. And I always say, as long as you leave on a good note, there will never be a burned bridge. I encourage people to go ahead and try things. And my general manager, he's great with that too. He wants to be the best, and he wants people to look back and say, that was the best job I ever had. I'd love
Right.
to go back if I could. So
Right.
that's the goal.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, as we wrap up here, one of the things I always like to ask is, one of the things that's happened in the pandemic, and you touched on it earlier, is that we're having to rebuild our workforce. Unfortunately, we furloughed, laid off, or got disconnected from a vast majority of the people that worked in our industry when the pandemic hit. We're trying to build it back up again. What kind of advice are you giving leaders or people who are coming into our industry and wanting to be leaders, to kind of help them out as they're working through their transition?
Yes. So once again, I'm going to go back to the human element. Just like, just understanding. Well, first, we like to ask people what they want to get out of this. If they want to get some administrative technical skills out of working for the hospitality industry, I would say, it's probably not for you, because your main motivation needs to be guest service, because those are the people we all know that keep us in business. They're our number one priority, and also your coworkers. So for anyone who's emerging, you have to make sure that they have the capacity to understand that while you still need to work towards being number one, having empathy is the most important thing. And being able to look at others' success as important as your success, because teamwork's crucial. Keeping everyone on the same page, aligned in the same direction, building each other up, not creating, competition. That's for the peers. And then for your own associates, you want them to take your job. You want them to be able to grow and make things happen how you need to make them happen, without even having to touch anything. and they do it just because they've been trained well and they're working towards the same goal as you. You have respect for each other. So my advice right off the bat is identifying, whether that's your priority in this business.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Leah, we're going to wrap up here, but if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to find you, get a hold of you?
I would say my LinkedIn's up to date. I'm pretty responsive as much as I can be. I'm running around crazy. My cell phone is my personal / work phone, so
Always.
I'm available 24/7. You know how it is.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that our listeners connect with you on LinkedIn. If anybody's in the Austin area and looking to work at a great place, definitely track Leah down, find her on LinkedIn. Leah, this has been absolutely wonderful. Great leadership, and I wish you the best there in Austin, and of course, as you move forward in your career. So, thank you very
Thank you
much,
so
and
much. Thank you
hopefully
for
we can
having
connect
me. It's
again.
been great. It's
Yeah,
been awesome.
awesome. Thank you, Leah.